Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy, Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today is Wednesday, so we're doing a little bit of a market watch. I've got 8 players that you need to buy, sell, hold, you know the deal, that we're going to be breaking down today. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And good morning to everyone here in the chat and listening on the podcast. Again, guys, you can find the Wake and Take podcast via the link in the description. Good morning to you, Trip, Donald, Lucas, Scott, our fearless producer, Dustin, and Ryan. Ryan went to a fantastic concert last night. Very curious to hear who it was, Ryan. Let us know. Let us know who you saw last night that has you hungover today where you need some more coffee. Good morning to you, Terminal Sarcasm, and Shaka Zulu 12. Let's go ahead and get right on into it, guys. This is the market watch. Things be happening in fantasy football. Players be going up, players be going down, players be saying the same, and it's time to make some moves. You got to make some trades. You got to buy these players. You got to sell these players. You know the deal. You know the deal. The concert was Soul Coughing. I was hoping it'd be someone I know, but sounds cool. Maybe like a noise rock band or something like that. Sounds very Sun O of or something like that. A good little. I'm gonna guess based on the name Soul Coughing. They're either like an emo, like kind of metal band, or they're maybe like a noise rock, maybe an industrial rock type thing. Just a very instrumental heavy band. Very cool. Very cool. Sounds like a fun show. Hope you had a good time, man. Sounds like you did if you're hungover. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this thing. We'll start with probably the one you guys want to know most about, and that's Jauan Jennings. Jauan Jennings had a massive performance in week 3. 12 targets, 11 receptions, 175 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. It's very Jauan Jennings of him to do that. But what should you do with him in fantasy football? Like, is this a player that you're going to be able to start confidently going forward for the rest of the season? No, for the rest of the season. I mean, yeah, you're going to want to start him over the next couple weeks, but I would say to go ahead and start exploring now, trying to sell, seeing what you can get in redraft and even in Dynasty. In fact, definitely in Dynasty, I would take like a 3rd round pick for this guy right now. I understand that Jauan Jennings is still only 27 years old and has been sticking around on the San Francisco 49ers like nobody's business throughout his career, but he has no athleticism. He's still buried on this depth chart. Brandon Ayuk is going to get a little bit better shaking that rust off. Deebo Samuel will be back at some point. George Kittle will be back at some point. This type of volume and production is not on the table again for Jauan Jennings. Will we have 60 yards and a touchdown here or there? Yeah, probably. But I mean, like, if you can get a 3rd round pick for him in Dynasty, just take that. Take the roster space, a 4th and like a handcuff running back or something. I don't know. But like, I can't imagine holding on to this player for too long unless I'm like crazy desperate in seasonal leagues. In Dynasty, I don't want him on my roster. I'm trying to get any value I can in Dynasty and redraft. I understand the case of kind of just holding on to him, but this is the only time you're really going to be able to start him. Maybe 1 more week, maybe 2 more weeks. But if you can get anything, just go ahead and do it. I mean, I'm looking at Keep Trade Cut right now. Wide receiver 66, and he's around the range of a Wan'Dale Robinson, Cortland Sutton, Demario Douglas, Keenan Allen, even Roman Wilson. And I just think that, honestly, I would rather have all of those wide receivers over him in Dynasty. And in redraft, even like a Wan'Dale, a Keenan Allen, I think are definitely very, very interesting. So I just really, I would be just at least seeing what you could get for him. I understand, again, in Dynasty, I don't want him. This is a sell in Dynasty. Like, get anything you really can. Like, say you want to go get a handcuff running back for him, just do it. If you could get Ray Davis, just do it. Get Kamani Vidal. I don't really care. Right. But in redraft, I understand the case for holding on to him a little bit more. But, I mean, he is still the wide receiver 4 and just had a massive, massive game. So I'm sure that you could get something for him worthwhile better. Like I said, this is a guy, like, if you're in seasonal, you need a starter for the next couple weeks, sure. Just hold on to him. But otherwise, get any value you can. There's probably another streaming wide receiver out there that you can get off the waiver wire still. Like, I mean, an Allen Lazard hasn't gotten this much value, but Allen Lazard probably has a better rest of season than Juwan Jennings. So I would like to at least explore selling Juwan Jennings right now, especially in Dynasty. Take really what you can get. In seasonal, hold on to him if you really need the help. But even then, it's probably best to just offload this asset after a massive week. I also understand that the fantasy community is wise to this, right? Right? Like, they're going to be like, all right, well, this was just 1 week. So, I mean, like, I understand it's going to be hard to get something. That's why I say, for the most part, get anything. But that's why he's also kind of classifies as a hold, as I do think he's going to have some utility over the next couple weeks. So that's where we're at. And go ahead, guys. Go ahead and start throwing some trade questions down in the chat. We'll get to those at the back of the show. Keep them coming. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next player. And that is going to be Sam Darnold. Last week we decided to go ahead and sell Derek Carr. I just really wasn't buying into the Saints offensive hype, at least lasting forever. And that's still kind of how I feel about Sam Darnold. Although I'll admit it, I'm a little less sure in the Sam Darnold collapse as I was the Derek Carr collapse. But still, we have to be honest with ourselves. Sam Darnold is probably not the Minnesota Vikings quarterback next year. And I do believe that a lot of his production right now is coming at the cost of, Kevin O'Connell offense and what the Minnesota Vikings have been able to put together and scheme for him. Has he maybe taken some strides? Yes. Will he have another opportunity? Probably. But, I mean, how often is he going to have a 4-touchdown, no interception game? And even in that game, he only had 181 pass yards, right? I don't know. In the first 2 games, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception each. I don't know, guys. It's just I expect at some point Sam Darnold to turn back into Sam Darnold again. So far through this year, he's the quarterback 4 on the season, quarterback 23 in Dynasty. He has 657 passing yards. 8 passing touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He's 4th in points per game right now amongst quarterbacks. He's playing really, really well. But I really am just not so sure that this can last forever. So I just think if you could get something for Sam Darnold, unless you're competing this year, I think you should probably do it. I think you should probably just get him, just get rid of him. Again, a second in Superflex probably is what you're looking for in terms of a draft pick return. But I would, especially in Dynasty, be doing what I can to offload Sam Darnold, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Justin Fields, and another quarterback that we'll be talking about at the back of the show as well. It's just there's some younger quarterbacks around his range that you could probably swap him for or not have to add too much to get to. That I believe in Justin Fields. I believe in Bo Nix. I believe in Michael Penix. You might be able to not add too much to get into the Drake May sweepstakes as well. I just think that this is a great point to try to offload Sam Darnold. He's never going to have another 4-touchdown, 0 interception game. There's absolutely no way. The stars are aligning for him right now. But as we see in the chat from Ryan Bolts, pumpkin time is coming, and October is just around the corner. He's going to turn back into the Sam Darnold we know and love at some point. He just has to. And even if it's maybe not the Sam Darnold we know and love, it's still going to be 2 touchdown, 1 interception Sam Darnold like we saw the first couple weeks of the season, which is, again, fine. It's fine. But this is a player who's probably not going to be on the Vikings next year. And, could still very much lose it over the course of the season. I mean, we're only 3 weeks into the season. And this is what Sam Darnold does. I mean, we even saw it in Carolina, right? Where he just put together a couple good games and then totally collapsed. This is now 3 games. He's looking good. I'm not going to lie. He's making some great throws. He's looking comfortable in the pocket. I'm not trying to say he's playing bad. I'm admitting that Sam Darnold is playing really, really well right now. But do we really expect that to last forever? I'm really not so sure. So if you can get, again, QB4 and seasonal, you could probably trade Sam Darnold and not add too much to get, Jordan Love right now in seasonal. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I would be looking to see what you can get. Again, if you're, competing, you're in the championship hunt, you're in super flex, and you want to hold on to Sam Darnold, sure. But for the most part, I do think that 2nd-round pick or maybe offloading him for a rookie quarterback or something like that is going to be the better answer going forward in terms of the value that you can get on your roster, which is, I don't know, it's risky. But again, this is Sam Darnold we're talking about, and he is, easy to trade right now. And when have you ever been able to say, I can trade Sam Darnold? Probably never. You've probably never been able to say that. So it's time to sell him before it gets too bad. And even if it doesn't get bad, this is probably like at some point everyone's going to be like, okay, hold on. This is Sam Darnold we're talking about. Do we really want to keep raising him up these dynasty ranks? And I'm just not so sure that we'll be there doing that. Next, we're going to go to another player that's doing really, really well so far this season, and that's James Cook. This is a tough one for me. I like James Cook a lot, but I see he's now RB8 in Dynasty. He's the RB6 on the season in PPR leagues. I think even RB4 in Standard. Playing super well on a great Bills offense. 25 years old, has really good athleticism. So far through the year, has a touchdown or 100 yards in every single game so far. We saw the 3 touchdowns against Miami, 13 points, 28 points, 18 points. Just had 15 touches against the Jaguars. I mean, he is getting the usage, right? He's getting every type of usage that you want from James Cook. Over almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns so far this season, 6 in points per game, coming off a 1,500-yard season last year as well. But I am calling the top. I'm calling the top. I mean, like, maybe he can go to RB7, but I don't really ever see him passing Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. And so I just think that this is an interesting time right now with James Cook to take him to try to tier up. Really tier up only. I was trying to think of who I'd maybe tier down with, and I don't know, maybe Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne and Jonathan Brooks. Like, I like those players a lot. But for the most part, you do have a really, really good asset in James Cook. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. But we are starting to see, kind of the bear case for why James Cook was available so much later than he should have been, and why, Ray Davis and Ty Johnson are getting a little bit of their value, or maybe just the type of production and usage that we don't want to see. I mean, he only had a 50% snap share against Miami. The Bills ran away with this game, so he wasn't utilized a lot towards the end. So he's 23rd in opportunity share, 26th in snap share, 24th in weighted opportunities, 18th in rushing yards, 20th in receptions, 33rd in routes run, 39th in juke rate, 17th in breakaway run rate, 25th in evaded tackles, 35th in yards created per touch, 23rd in yards created. Like, this isn't an efficiency profile of a top 5 running back. It's a very good running back. We're liking what we're seeing from James Cook, but right now is the RB8 in Dynasty. I think this is about as high as he can go, especially since he's under 200 pounds. Like, there's always just going to be kind of the injury concerns with him, and that's why he can't have a full workload. That's why Ray Davis and Ty Johnson are getting involved in the way that they are. So I would just be looking to sell James Cook. For the most part, I'm only trying to tier up with him. I understand he's a great asset, but there are a couple options, like I said, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, maybe swapping for a high-end wide receiver to where I'm okay, just moving on from James Cook. I used him to get Anthony Richardson in a trade, for example. Like, I'm still trying to stay within the elite assets when it comes to James Cook, but I think that this is about as high as his dynasty value is going to go, to be completely honest with you. I don't know. I don't know how much higher he can go, and it's more of a value play than it is I don't like James Cook play. Like, I like him a lot. I do. He's playing really well. But I just can't imagine him going much higher in dynasty value. So I think it's time to try to offload him not even while you can't. I mean, he's going to be about this range, but just, while there's a lot of hype around him. 3 touchdowns last week. Bills offense on fire on Monday Night Football. This is about, this is just about as high as his value can go. Nothing against the player. It's just a value play here. So James Cook, look to tier up or maybe swap him for another positions like elite asset, or tier down a slight bit, but not too far. Like, I still want like an ETN or a Kenneth Walker if I am moving on from James Cook. Is audio not working for anyone else? NFL Fantasy Ice says the audio is not working. So let me know. I don't see anyone else saying anything, so I'm assuming it's working. But let me know, guys, if nothing is coming through, so we could try to fix that. That's definitely a concern. But I'm looking at my audio levels right now, and it says we're good. So I think it might be a Twitter thing, because Fantasy Ice is on Twitter, and it's not working. So, hey, NFL Fantasy Ice, come to YouTube. NFL Fantasy Ice. I'm gonna put it in the chat since he can't hear me. That's interesting that YouTube is not working, but there we go. NFL Fantasy Ice, come to YouTube. Oh, never mind. Ham is okay. So it sounds like Fantasy Ice just needs to turn his volume up. There it is. Oh, my volume wasn't on. That's hilarious. So anyway, guys, glad we figured that out. If you're liking this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, guys. It means a lot. It keeps this kind of content going everywhere. We've got one more player before we're halfway through, so why don't we go ahead and reach this halfway point, then do a little bit of an ad break. We are right now. This is an interesting one to me, guys. This is a very interesting one to me, and I don't think anyone is talking about this player right now. I don't think a single person in fantasy football is talking about this player, and that's Evan Engram. Evan Engram, I think, is one of the biased buys right now, if I've got to be honest with you. He's fallen down to tight end 13 in Dynasty. And I mean, his only game this season, he was not good, right? I think he only had like 1 or 2 targets, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. I probably should have wrote down his stats so far, but I knew they were bad, so I didn't care. But what we're seeing from Brenton Strange in his absence, I think is very intriguing, right? Because you look at Brenton Strange, 5 targets, 2 receptions, and a touchdown last week. 6 targets, 3 receptions, and 65 yards the week before. And Evan Engram last year had 143 targets, 114 receptions, 963 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Had a massive 40-point performance as well. Evan Engram is a big part of this Jaguars offense, and it seems since he's been out that they actually have been struggling. You know, we saw them look pretty good week 1, and without Evan Engram, they've looked pretty bad. So I think that when Evan Engram returns, it's going to help Trevor Lawrence look a lot better. But Evan Engram is also going to produce back at the level that he should be. Right now, he keeps falling in dynasty rankings because he's unhealthy. But you have to remember what we saw from him last year and what we should see from this Jaguars offense going a bit forward. If Evan Engram can get the same amount of target, again, 5 and 6 targets the last 2 weeks for Brenton Strange. Evan Engram should very easily get that, if not more, and probably be a little bit more productive with it. And this is actually a great point, Chris. I wrote it too in the show sheet. All the Jags offense, they're all acquirable right now. We just talked about Travis Etienne. You would have to add to Travis Etienne to get to James Cook. You know, when was the last time we were able to say that? You know, Brian Thomas Jr., he fell like 10 dynasty spots after Monday Night Football. Trevor Lawrence, he's behind Jared Goff now in dynasty rankings. I mean, the whole Jaguars offense is very, very acquirable. You know, Doug Peterson, it seemed, I don't know if Doug Peterson's trash, but he has too much loyalty to his coordinators, and that is affecting the offense. But still, Evan Engram, he's been productive in this offense before. I think he would be productive when he returns. And right now, he's next to players like David Njoku and Pat Freiermuth in dynasty rankings. And he's probably pretty easy to acquire and redraft even, just because he hasn't really been producing. So this is probably the buyingest buy of the show. Evan Engram, get him on your team before it's too late. I think we could very much see a great Evan Engram second half of the season again, like we've seen the last couple of years. You know, a top 5 tight end the last 2 years in PPR league. So Evan Engram, to me, is a huge screaming buy right now. Get him on your team in both dynasty and redraft. And with that being said, we've now reached the halfway point. So let's just go ahead and hear a little bit about our player rankings before we move on.
Hey, this will just take a second. I want to talk about our player rankings, the weekly projections, Billy, Theo, and our analytics geniuses getting your start sit decisions dialed in that flex tab. And then you get the season rankings. Want to make add drop decisions? The season rankings are updated every week all year. And you have the best dynasty rankings ever as part of the player rankings package. And don't forget the offensive line rankings. Dan Fornick, one of the best in the business. New running back starting this week. Hey, is that offensive line top 10? Yeah, okay, start them. And we rank the cornerbacks out to CB100 with the corresponding receiver they're going to be matched up with most this coming week. The player rankings are the thing you need during the season on PlayerProfiler.com. Check it out.
Get those player rankings. They are incredible. The data team puts together some incredible stuff every single week. They're updated every week. All sorts of different types of scoring formats and everything in the Player Profiler rankings. Highly recommend getting those, as well as really just the whole all-in package. This Player Profiler has some awesome tools to help you stay ahead of your leagues. Now, guys, we're back to the market watch. Garrett Wilson, what are we doing? Garrett Wilson, we need to sell him. It's done. It's time, okay? I've seen enough. I've seen enough. This has been a player I've been trying to sell for a long time anyway. A player I've pretty frequently been avoiding in redraft just because he doesn't have that ceiling. He doesn't have that ceiling, guys. First 2 seasons in the league, about 1,000 yards, 3 touchdowns over the last 2 years. And this year, through 3 weeks, doesn't have a single 15-point game. 150 yards through 3 games, 26 targets, 15 receptions, and a touchdown. It's just fine. It's just fine. But the last 2 years, 32nd in points per game, 30th in points per game. Currently, right now, 29th in points per game. Wide receiver 9 in Dynasty? Wide receiver 9 in Dynasty. Garrett Wilson, who's being outproduced by Allen Lazard on his own team, is the wide receiver 9 in Dynasty? What are we doing? I mean, like, he's the wide receiver 28 on the season so far. We've never seen, an elite season from him. And I'm really just starting to feel like we're not. I am, like, so confused how a player who had 1,700 air yards last season has only 6 more air yards than he does receiving yards so far this season, and is barely being utilized. Barely being utilized. 26 targets through 3 weeks for this player should not be what's happened. Just should not be. And now Mike Williams is returning, and he's getting 4 targets. Alvin Lazard is being utilized. Breece Hall is being utilized. Sell him while you can in Dynasty. Keep holding on to him in redraft. I don't care. I mean, you've spent enough capital that you're just not going to get back for him. But in Dynasty, wide receiver 9, you can get Nico Collins, Rashee Rice, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Roma Dunze, Chris Olave, if you want the same player that seems to have a little bit more ceiling. This is a Dynasty take. Chris, I see you coming back. Like I said, in redraft, just hold on to this player. But in Dynasty, Jesus Christ, he's not a top 10 wide receiver. Sorry. He's not. He's not. He hasn't done it, hasn't shown it, hasn't given us a reason to believe that. So right now at wide receiver 9 price tag, a 24-year-old wide receiver, he needs to be sold. He needs to be sold because next year more wide receivers are going to come in. And what do we see every year? The rookies, they get steamed up like crazy. And the fact that you can get a Puka Nacua, a Chris Olave, a Roma Dunze, and A.J. Brown for Garrett Wilson right now, I just think is crazy. I just think it's crazy, really. In redraft, again, hold on to him, whatever. But the fact that you can get top-end value for this player despite disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, it's just time. Listen to these stats. 44th in route win rate, 37th in total route wins, 45th in points per route run, 65th in points per target. I mean, we're 48th in dominator rating, 62nd in target premium, 52nd in target separation, 64th in true catch rate, only 18th in expected fantasy points per game. His target quality ranks 25th. His average target distance is 57th. He only has 156 air yards, which is 25th so far. 29th in routes run. I mean, this guy is not an alpha. He does not have alpha usage or alpha production. He's good at football. Not taking that away. You don't get 1,000-yard seasons by accident, okay? But the fact that he's still valued so high in Dynasty, just go ahead and sell him now in Dynasty. Wide receiver 9 price tag, I just think is too high for this player at this point. We held out hope for long enough. I'm done. Sell high on Garrett Wilson. Next, this is an interesting one that I'm actually kind of going back and forth on it. I didn't realize that he had actually risen so high in Dynasty rankings, but I think that this is going to be one of those cases where the Dynasty ranking doesn't match the value. Because I do see that DK Metcalf is up there, wide receiver 17 on Keep Trade Cut now. But he was like wide receiver 28 heading into this week, and I really thought he would still be in the 20s. And also, just DK Metcalf, I feel like there's the kind of aura around him. He's an acquirable Dynasty asset, even if that's where, even at his range, right? Like, whoever has him is looking to sell DK Metcalf. As a DK Metcalf owner, I'm always looking to sell DK Metcalf, especially after, these ceiling weeks. But I don't know, guys. I don't know, guys. I think it's time to buy DK Metcalf. And I know that this is the wrong time to buy. Like we probably should have been buying a couple weeks ago. But I'm starting to just get some confirmation bias out of what I'm seeing from this new Seahawks offense. It seems that DK Metcalf is being utilized properly and kind of finally tapping into the alpha potential that we've been wanting for this guy. Because he's only 29th in target share, but he has the 12th most receptions, the 6th most receiving yards. He's 10th in yards after catch, 9th in points per game, 9th in total route wins, 7th in total fantasy points. I mean, like, he's playing really, 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 really well. Really, really well. And getting a ton of volume as well. 6 targets, 4 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown this week, 14 targets in week 2. To me, it just really seems that Ryan Grubbs has kind of unlocked the passing part of this offense and has kind of made DK Metcalf the alpha. And I know it was a quiet week 1, but I mean, back-to-back 20-point performances, finally kind of hitting like peak wide receiver age at 26 years old, has the same athletic profile. I think we're finally, I really think we're on the DK Metcalf breakout year, like the true DK Metcalf breakout year that we've been waiting for. I know we've had 3,000 yard seasons. We've had multiple double-digit touchdown years from this guy, but it's been a long time coming. And it just, I'm actually seeing the utilization and the production and the opportunity and really everything finally going his way. That where I'm just going to say it, I think it's DK Metcalf season. I think I'm fine buying into him. Now, again, I do say, like, wide receiver 17 dynasty value is kind of expensive. It is kind of expensive, but I don't think he costs that. Like, I see he's next to Drake London and Brandon Ayuk. I don't think you would actually have to trade Drake London straight up for DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk straight up for DK Metcalf. I think that you're still getting a cherry on top. And I see he's ahead of like Brian Thomas Jr., JSN, Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers. I still think if you offered any of those players for DK Metcalf, you're probably getting accepted, right? Like, I think that still everyone in the Dynasty community is expecting JSN to beat out DK Metcalf, right? And I don't know. I as a JSN kind of truther, I'm really like, I'm watching this Seahawks offense. I'm seeing the points come in for DK Metcalf, and I'm really thinking to myself that this is the DK Metcalf year. So I'm buying in. Perhaps the wrong buying time. This could definitely bite me in the ass. Again, he has taken a rise in his value. He's had great back-to-back weeks, but it looks like it's here. Like, it really, like it's all there. It's all there. So DK Metcalf, get him on your team, guys. I think it's time. Next, we've got Dallas Goedert. And this is going to be a case by case basis. Because for the most part, again, after 1 week, it's pretty hard to offload an asset. But since he's a tight end, I think it might be a little bit easier. He's currently the tight end 1 in PPR leagues now after his massive performance this week, 10 receptions and 170 yards. And with Devontae Smith likely out another week, it looks like A.J. Brown is going to be out another week. We're probably going to see another Dallas Goedert ceiling game. Which could honestly be huge, right? So maybe you want to hold on to him for 1 more week just in case. But I think that you should go ahead and start exploring the sell option as it pertains to Dallas Goedert. In both seasonal and dynasty. I see he's only the dynasty tight end 14, but I think this is another one of those cases where the dynasty value doesn't match what you could get for him. I think you could sell Dallas Goedert for much more than tight end 14 prices. I think if you could go ahead and get like a first for him, you might honestly want to go ahead and do that. Unless it's a tight end premium, but we're not going to see this season long. Okay. 5 targets, 4 targets the first 2 weeks of the season. In week 2, there was no A.J. Brown and he only had 4 targets, right? So I don't believe in Dallas Goedert being a true target earner on this offense when everyone's healthy. So I'd be looking to offload him now while I can. The people out there are always going to be like, oh, well, yeah, sure. Like, he didn't have the usage the first couple weeks of the season, but now he's unlocked, like now that he's done it, they're going to scheme these plays for him. And I don't know. I don't really think that's the case. So I'm going to start exploring the sell option for Dallas Goedert. Like Evan Ingram, I think is a very interesting one. Like if I can get Evan Ingram plus for Dallas Goedert, I'm doing that. If I can get Mark Andrews for Dallas Goedert, I'm doing that. If I don't have to add much to get a Kyle Pitts, a Dalton Kincaid, a Sam Laporta, I'm doing it. Okay. Like those are some underperforming elite tight ends that actually have the target earning potential in terms of rest of season. So just explore selling Dallas Goedert right now in both seasonal and dynasty and see what you can get. For the most part, it's probably going to classify as a hold, but if you can get that nice return for him, go ahead and do it. But yeah, just again, it's one huge week. He didn't really get the targets when the other players were healthy, and he didn't even get the targets when AJ Brown was out. So I think that this is a great opportunity to try to move on from him while you can. And the last player on today's show sheets, and it's really 2 players, to be honest. And this is honestly gut feel. I have no data, no analysis to back this up, okay? And not even because I'm a Falcons fan and live here in Atlanta. I think you need to buy Kirk Cousins. You know, it's been a tough first 3 weeks of the season. Steelers, Eagles, Chiefs. Those are tough matchups, and he started to look okay over the last couple of weeks. 200 plus passing yards in back-to-back games, only 1 interception over the last 2 weeks. Not scoring a lot of fantasy points, but 17 against the Eagles was pretty good. And I just think that this is only the beginning. You know, we saw him look less than 100% against the Steelers, and we're seeing the signs of life kind of start to show and seep through. And I just think by the end of the season, probably by even mid-season, Kirk Cousins will be wheeling and dealing in the way that he normally does. So I do want to go ahead and get Kirk Cousins while I can. This is an interesting one. And like we talked about Sam Darnold earlier, like if you could trade Sam Darnold for Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney, for example, I'm doing it, right? Like if you can get an asset on top of Kirk Cousins for Sam Darnold and seasonal, just do it, right? Just do it. Because I do think that Kirk Cousins is going to be good rest of season. The Falcons' schedule really, really does open up. If you'll remember heading into the year, the Falcons had the easiest strength of schedule, but they had all their tough matchups at the beginning of the year. This week, they have the Saints, and then they have the Bucks, and then the Panthers, and then the Seahawks, and then the Bucks again, and then the Cowboys, and then the Saints, and then the Broncos, and then the Chargers, and then the Vikings, right? Like it gets a little bit easier throughout the course of the season. I know the Vikings is a tough matchup, but you know, that's the revenge game narrative. And this is just a quarterback with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons with over 4,000 passing yards. 1, 2, 3 seasons with at least 30 passing touchdowns. Last year, you know, he was the QB1 before his injury. So I just want to go ahead and try to get Kirk Cousins while I can. And I mentioned that this is a 2-parter. I want to get Michael Penix in Dynasty really, really bad. I try to get Michael Penix, right? In seasonal, maybe too, and Superflex start stashing him, okay? I just think that while I do believe Kirk Cousins will turn it around, there's always still the back of the head. He is returning from an Achilles injury, and just a snap of a finger, he could be done for the year. So I do think that Michael Penix is very much worth rostering and trying to acquire right now as well. By both the Falcons quarterbacks, they're a bit deflated right now because the offense hasn't necessarily come to life, but it's going to at some point this season. You'll just have to take my word for it. Again, no like way to say for sure that that's going to happen, but I know the schedule opens up. I know Kirk Cousins is going to get healthier, and I just know this coaching staff and team as a whole is going to get more comfortable and gelled together. So look to acquire Kirk Cousins while you can. And Michael Penix while you can. And that should do it, guys. That was the Market Watch, my top 8 buys and sells heading into week 4. As mentioned at the top of the show, let's go ahead and get into your questions. I saw a super chat, so we're going to go ahead and do this one first. Supersize Senpai, thank you so much for the super chat. $2. Should I drop Raheem Mostert for Bucky Irving? Man, I would hope to drop someone else, but it does kind of seem that Raheem Mostert isn't really worth rostering in some of these shallower formats right now. And I'm assuming if this is the case, if Bucky Irving is still out there and you're asking about dropping Raheem Mostert, it probably is a shallower league. So I would say probably, because he's going to be less than 100% when he does return. Devon Achan's still getting most of the opportunity. And I think that they're going to keep giving Jalen Wright some opportunities as well. And Bucky Irving looks to be someone that needs to be rostered. I'm going to scroll back to the top of the show. Dylan is 0-3. You made a must-win now trade. All players are struggling. You sent Anthony Richardson, Garrett Wilson, and Travis Etienne for Lamar Jackson, Brandon Ayuk, and David Montgomery. I don't hate it at all, really. I mean, Anthony Richardson, he's kind of concerning right now. He has played against a couple tough defenses, so hopefully he starts to turn it around. but Lamar Jackson's still better than Anthony Richardson. I would probably, rather have Brandon Ayuk over Garrett Wilson at this point in time. Even with Brandon Ayuk playing poorly, I do think he's going to figure it out. And with all the health scares in San Francisco, it seems he could have a really good stretch coming up. And David Montgomery versus Travis Etienne. I mean, I would rather have Etienne, but the Jaguars offense isn't looking really good. And you can kind of count on David Montgomery at least to score a touchdown, which is just awesome. So I think that was a really fun trade. Good job, Dylan. Let's see. You were offered Rachaad White for Mooney. You were offered Darnell Mooney and Jackson Smith-Njigba for Rachaad White. If you need a wide receiver, I think I would do that. Because, I mean, we're watching the Seattle Seahawks offense look pretty damn good. So, yeah, I think I like that trade. Would you trade Pickens and a first for Neighbors? Yes, I would do that. Like, if I could get Neighbors for a first and George Pickens, I'm definitely doing that. Oh, Malachi Corley. I would, adding Malachi Corley to that makes it, yes, I would still do that. Like, give me Malik Neighbors in that trade. Let's see. Moving to the next question. Maybe. Try to find one here. Again, guys, thanks for tuning in. While I'm searching for this next question, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for tuning in, spending your Wednesday doing a little bit of a market watch with me. Let's see. Man, I'm actually... Oh, you were offered Scary Terry and a 25 first for Josh Jacobs. I think you could go ahead and do that. I think getting that first round pick for Josh Jacobs is pretty sweet right now. Would you give DK Metcalf and Alec Pierce for CeeDee Lamb? I would take CeeDee Lamb. I would take CeeDee Lamb in that. Yeah, as producer D says, if you can get any of those elite wide receivers for something semi-reasonable, you've just got to do it. Nick Take Jake says, I'm selling Kincaid. Convince me otherwise. It depends what the return is. I mean, for the most part, I think he's a hold. But that's why we were avoiding Dalton Kincaid in the show and said he was a sell. I'm just not sure you can really get the return for him, even with the touchdown. I don't know. It doesn't look like he's getting the utilization people wanted. And it just seems that I would rather at this point just have a Bills weapon, just in case, especially at tight end. Like, I still think he'll be top 12. Planning on dropping Dalton Schultz. Should I replace him with Conklin or Ertz? I just put him really in the same tier. I just wouldn't drop. I mean, I guess if you have Kelsey, you just keep rolling with Kelsey, really. You were offered Rome Odunze, Drake London for Rachaad White, Shakir, and Terry McLaurin. Redraft league. I guess give me Rome and London. Those are some top-tier players, the best two players in the trade. So, yeah, go ahead. Garrett Wilson and DeAndre Swift for Zay Flowers. Give me the Wilson and Swift side. Would you drop Corum? No, I would not drop Corum yet. And I see one more here. A rebuilder as Jackson Smith-Njigba on the block. You offered a late second, but that wasn't enough. Yeah, I would try to add maybe Quentin Johnston into that deal that you kind of threw in there. If you could give second and Quentin Johnston for JSN, that seems like one that would be accepted, as well as where you'd get a good return back. Quentin Johnston, I think, is kind of just getting fraudulent with these touchdowns. There's not enough pass volume in Los Angeles, and I still don't think Quentin Johnston is going to turn into someone that you can comfortably start on a week-to-week basis. Jackson Smith-Njigba is that. And with it being a late second, that's a really solid value to go ahead and get JSN on your squad. So, yeah, I would be doing that. And that should do it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This was another fun episode of Wake and Take. I hope you guys liked the market analysis. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And again, tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern as we'll break down some of the biggest news stories of the week, as well as giving a little bit of a preview for week 4. Everyone, you all have a wonderful Wednesday and a magnificent rest of your week. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.